Monte Sereno, an affluent suburb nestled in the rolling hills overlooking Silicon Valley, was home to tech moguls, venture capitalists, and the creme de la creme of California's elite. Among its manicured lawns and gated mansions, none stood out quite like the Sinclair estate. A sprawling 10-acre property, it boasted a main house that looked more like a modern castle, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows, a state-of-the-art security system, and a view that stretched all the way to the San Francisco Bay on clear days. James Sinclair, the 52-year-old patriarch of the family, had built his tech empire, Sinclair Innovations, from the ground up. Born in a small town in Idaho to working-class parents, James had clawed his way to the top through a combination of brilliant coding skills, ruthless business acumen, and an unquenchable thirst for success. His company, which specialized in cutting-edge AI and machine learning technologies, was valued at billions and had made James a household name in tech circles. Standing at 6'2", with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes, James cut an imposing figure in both the boardroom and at home. He prided himself on his control over his company, his image, and his family. Every aspect of the Sinclair life was carefully curated to project an image of success and perfection. Victoria Sinclair, née Campbell, was James's wife of 26 years. At 48, she remained strikingly beautiful, with flowing auburn hair and green eyes that seemed to hide a universe of secrets. A renowned interior designer, Victoria had made a name for herself, transforming the homes of Silicon Valley's elite into works of art. Her own home, of course, was her masterpiece, a blend of modern minimalism and classic elegance that frequently graced the pages of architectural digests. But beneath her poised exterior and picture-perfect smile, Victoria harbored a deep well of dissatisfaction. Her marriage to James had long since cooled into a business arrangement, a partnership of convenience rather than love. She found herself increasingly lost in memories of her youth, particularly of a passionate affair she had before meeting James. Olivia Sinclair, the couple's 24-year-old daughter, was the apple of her father's eye and the source of her mother's silent envy. A prodigy in the art world, Olivia's abstract paintings sold for six figures at galleries across the country. With her mother's striking looks and her father's sharp intellect, Olivia seemed destined for greatness. Yet, like her parents, Olivia's outward success masked inner turmoil. She resented her father's controlling nature and her mother's apparent complacency. Unbeknownst to her parents, Olivia had begun exploring her sexuality, engaging in a secret relationship with her art dealer, Sarah Chen. From the outside, the Sinclairs appeared to have it all: wealth, success, beauty, and talent. But behind the grand facade of their estate, a web of secrets, lies, and unfulfilled desires threatened to unravel everything they had built. On a warm spring evening in April 2023, the annual Monte Sereno Charity Gala was in full swing at the Sinclair estate. The who's who of Silicon Valley mingled on the expansive lawn, sipping champagne and discussing the latest tech trends and market fluctuations. James Sinclair, ever the gracious host, worked the crowd with practiced ease, his hand resting possessively on the small of Victoria's back as they moved from group to group. Olivia, looking radiant in a sleek black gown, stood near the bar, engrossed in conversation with a tall, handsome man in his mid-30s. This was Nathan Brooks, the newest addition to Monte Sereno's elite circle. Having moved into the neighborhood just 3 months prior, Nathan had quickly become the talk of the town. With his chiseled features, perfectly coiffed dark hair, and an easy charm that seemed to disarm everyone he met, Nathan had integrated himself seamlessly into Monte Sereno society. He claimed to be a successful venture capitalist, though details about his background remained frustratingly vague to the gossip-hungry residents. What none of the glittering guests knew, not even Nathan himself at first, was that his presence at the gala was far from coincidental. Nathan Brooks was, in fact, born Ethan Campbell, the secret child of Victoria Sinclair and her former lover, Alex Campbell. 25 years ago, Victoria, then a 23-year-old art student in San Francisco, had fallen deeply in love with Alex, a struggling artist with a magnetic personality and a troubled past. Their affair was passionate, but short-lived. When Victoria discovered she was pregnant, Alex, battling his own demons and addiction issues, disappeared without a trace. Scared and alone, Victoria had made the painful decision to give up her baby for adoption, vowing to leave that chapter of her life behind forever. She threw herself into her studies, and within a year she had met James Sinclair, then a rising star in the tech world. Their whirlwind romance and subsequent marriage had seemed like a fairy tale, a chance for Victoria to bury her past and embrace a life of security and success. But secrets have a way of resurfacing, and Nathan's appearance in Monte Sereno was the first tremor in what would soon become an earthquake that would shatter the Sinclair family's carefully constructed world. As Nathan chatted with Olivia, his eyes kept darting to Victoria across the lawn. He had spent years tracking down his birth mother, fueled by a mix of curiosity and resentment. When he finally discovered her identity and saw the life she had built for herself, a plan began to form in his mind. He would infiltrate the Sinclair family, expose the lies, and claim what he believed was rightfully his: recognition, wealth, and the mother who had abandoned him. What Nathan couldn't have anticipated was how his presence would act as a catalyst, bringing to the surface long-buried tensions and desires within the Sinclair family. As the night wore on, the air grew thick with unspoken words and hidden glances, setting the stage for a drama that would soon explode into the open. In the weeks following the charity gala, Nathan Brooks began to weave himself into the fabric of the Sinclairs' lives with calculated precision. He approached each family member differently, expertly playing on their individual weaknesses and desires. With James, Nathan positioned himself as a potential protege and confidant. He sought out the older man's advice on investment strategies and technological trends, stroking James's ego while simultaneously gathering information about Sinclair innovations. James, always hungry for admiration and influence, found himself increasingly drawn to the younger man, seeing in Nathan a reflection of his younger self. "You know, Nathan," James said one afternoon as they stood in his home office, surrounded by screens displaying real-time market data, "I see a lot of potential in you. You remind me of myself at your age, hungry, ambitious. If you play your cards right, you could go far in this industry." Nathan nodded, his eyes gleaming with what James mistook for admiration, but was, in reality, a mix of contempt and calculation. "That means a lot coming from you, James. I've always admired how you built Sinclair Innovations from nothing. I'd love to learn more about your journey." As James launched into a self-aggrandizing tale of his rise to success, Nathan mentally filed away every detail, every potential weakness he could exploit later. With Victoria, Nathan's approach was subtler. He often, coincidentally, ran into her at local cafes or art galleries, engaging her in conversations about design and art. Victoria, starved for intellectual stimulation and genuine connection, found herself looking forward to these chance encounters. During one such meeting, at a small French bistro in town, Nathan steered the conversation towards family and roots. "I've always been fascinated by genealogy," he said, watching Victoria's reaction carefully. "The idea that our past shapes who we are, even the parts we might not know about. Have you ever looked into your family history, Victoria?" Victoria's hand trembled slightly as she set down her coffee cup. No, not really. The past is the past, isn't it? What matters is the life we build for ourselves. Nathan noted the flicker of discomfort in her eyes, filing it away for future use. Of course, he said smoothly, but sometimes the past has a way of catching up with us, doesn't it? With Olivia, Nathan played the role of a mentor and friend in the art world. He praised her work effusively and introduced her to his contacts, in reality, paid actors, who expressed interest in showcasing her art in new, edgy galleries. Olivia, constantly seeking validation outside her father's shadow, blossomed under Nathan's attention. She began confiding in him about her frustrations with her parents and her secret relationship with Sarah. "I just feel so suffocated sometimes," Olivia confessed one evening as they sat in her studio, surrounded by her latest paintings. "It's like I'm living someone else's idea of who I should be." Nathan nodded sympathetically. "I understand. It must be hard living up to the Sinclair name. Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you could just start over? Be anyone you wanted to be?" As Nathan wormed his way deeper into the Sinclairs' lives, cracks began to appear in the family's perfect façade. James worked longer hours, becoming increasingly paranoid about potential rivals in the tech industry. Victoria grew distant and preoccupied, often losing herself in old photo albums when she thought no one was watching. And Olivia's art took a darker turn, her canvases filled with fractured images and shadowy figures. The tension in the household grew palpable, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and at the center of it all was Nathan, watching and waiting for the perfect moment. The catalyst for the Sinclair family's unraveling came on a warm evening in late June, nearly 3 months after Nathan's first appearance at the charity gala. The family had gathered for a rare dinner together, the air thick with unspoken tensions. James, his mind preoccupied with a potential hostile takeover at Sinclair Innovations, barely touched his food. Victoria sipped her wine a bit too quickly, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Olivia pushed her salad around her plate, stealing glances at her phone where messages from Sarah awaited. The silence was broken by the sound of the doorbell. Moments later, their housekeeper ushered Nathan into the dining room. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Nathan said smoothly, his eyes taking in the tableau before him. "I just stopped by to drop off some documents for James, but perhaps I could join you for a nightcap." Before James could respond, Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not feeling well," she mumbled. "If you'll excuse me." She hurried from the room, leaving a trail of confusion in her wake. Nathan's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "I hope I haven't upset Mrs. Sinclair," he said, his voice laced with false concern. "Perhaps I should check on her." "No," James said sharply, rising from his seat. "I'll go. Olivia, why don't you entertain our guest?" As James left the room, Nathan turned to Olivia with a sympathetic smile. "Family dinners can be so tense, can't they? It must be difficult living up to the Sinclair name." Olivia sighed, her guard lowering. "You have no idea. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to just disappear, start over somewhere new." Nathan leaned in, his voice low and conspiratorial. "What if I told you that might be possible? That there are secrets in this family that could change everything?" Meanwhile, James found Victoria in their bedroom, hurriedly shoving clothes into a suitcase. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded. Victoria whirled to face him, her eyes wild with a mix of fear and determination. "I can't do this anymore, James. The lies, the pretending, it's killing me." "What are you talking about?" James grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her skin. "You're not going anywhere. Think about what this would do to our reputation, to the company." Victoria wrenched herself free. That's all you care about, isn't it? Your precious reputation. Well, I have a news flash for you, James. Your perfect family is built on lies, and it's all about to come crashing down. Before James could respond, they heard a gasp from the doorway. Olivia stood there, her face pale with shock. Mom? Dad? What's going on? And behind her, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation, stood Nathan. The next few hours passed in a blur of accusations, revelations, and shattered illusions. Victoria, pushed to her breaking point, confessed to her past affair and the child she had given up for adoption. James, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him, lashed out with threats and recriminations. Olivia, caught in the crossfire, finally broke down and revealed her own secret relationship with Sarah. And Nathan, the puppet master behind it all, watched as the Sinclair family tore itself apart. In the chaos that followed, Victoria fled the house, driving off into the night with no clear destination in mind. James, his face a mask of fury and betrayal, locked himself in his study with a bottle of scotch, and Olivia, overwhelmed by the revelations and desperate for escape, called Sarah and begged her to come pick her up. As dawn broke over Monte Sereno, the Sinclair estate stood silent, its perfect façade hiding the devastation within. And Nathan Brooks, his plan set in motion but spiraling in ways he hadn't anticipated, realized that the game he had started was far from over. The disappearance of Victoria Sinclair sent shockwaves through Monte Sereno. Within 24 hours of her dramatic exit, the police were involved, and the Sinclair family's private drama became very public indeed. Detective Elena Ramirez, a seasoned investigator with the Monte Sereno Police Department, took charge of the case. As she interviewed James and Olivia, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than a simple case of a wife walking out after an argument. "Mr. Sinclair," Ramirez said, her keen eyes taking in James's disheveled appearance and the faint smell of alcohol that clung to him, "when was the last time you saw your wife?" James ran a hand through his unkempt hair, his usual confidence notably absent. "2 nights ago. We had an argument and she left. I assumed she'd cool off and come back, but—" He trailed off, his eyes distant. "And what was the argument about?" James's jaw tightened. Personal matters, nothing relevant to her disappearance. Olivia, interviewed separately, painted a different picture. "Everything just exploded," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mom was talking about lies and secrets. Dad was yelling about reputation and the company. I've never seen them like that before." As the investigation progressed, Victoria's car was found abandoned near Crystal Lake, a popular hiking spot about an hour's drive from Monte Sereno. The discovery sparked a massive search operation, with police, volunteers, and search dogs combing the area for any sign of the missing woman. Days turned into weeks, and Victoria remained missing. The media descended on Monte Sereno, turning the Sinclair family's private pain into public spectacle. Rumors and speculation ran rampant, with tabloids hinting at everything from a secret lover to foul play. Nathan Brooks, meanwhile, played his role to perfection. He was a constant presence at the Sinclair estate, offering support to James and Olivia, while simultaneously dropping subtle hints to the police about the family's hidden tensions. "I just want to help in any way I can," Nathan told Detective Ramirez during one of their many conversations. "The Sinclairs have been so kind to me since I moved here. It's terrible to see them going through this." But as Ramirez dug deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. Victoria's friends spoke of a woman who had seemed increasingly distant and preoccupied in recent months. Financial records showed large withdrawals from her personal account in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. And then there was Nathan Brooks himself, a man who had appeared in Monte Sereno out of nowhere and ingratiated himself with the Sinclairs with suspicious speed. As the investigation stretched into its second month, the strain began to show on the remaining Sinclairs. James, his company suffering in the wake of the scandal. As the investigation stretched into its second month, the strain began to show on the remaining Sinclairs. James, his company suffering in the wake of the scandal, retreated further into his work, barely acknowledging Olivia's presence in the house. Olivia, torn between worry for her mother and resentment towards her father, threw herself into her art with a feverish intensity. Nathan, meanwhile, continued to play his role as the concerned friend, all while carefully manipulating the situation to his advantage. He made a point of being seen comforting Olivia and offering support to James, cementing his place in their lives. It was on a foggy morning in early August that the case took an unexpected turn. Detective Ramirez received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. As she and her team approached the dilapidated building, tension hung heavy in the air. Inside, they found a makeshift living space, a cot, some basic supplies, and most importantly, evidence that someone had been staying there recently. As they combed through the area, Ramirez's eye caught on something tucked beneath the cot. It was a sketch pad, filled with intricate drawings that were unmistakably in Victoria Sinclair's style. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation. Had Victoria been hiding out here all this time? And if so, why? As news of the warehouse discovery spread, James Sinclair's carefully constructed façade began to crumble. During a tense interview with Detective Ramirez, he finally broke down. I may have done something terrible, James confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. The night Victoria disappeared, our argument got out of hand. She threatened to expose everything, the affairs, the insider trading, all of it. I couldn't let that happen. I pushed her and she fell. She hit her head on the corner of the desk. There was so much blood. Ramirez leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What did you do, Mr. Sinclair? James's next words came out in a rush. I panicked. I thought she was dead. I wrapped her in a blanket and drove her to Crystal Lake. I left her there, by the water's edge. I never meant for any of this to happen. As James was taken into custody, the search for Victoria intensified. But even as dive teams scoured Crystal Lake, Nathan Brooks was making his own moves. He approached Olivia, his face a mask of concern. Olivia, there's something you need to know. About your mother. About me. About everything. Over the next hour, Nathan revealed the truth of his identity and his connection to Victoria. Olivia listened in stunned silence as he explained how he had come to Monte Sereno seeking answers, only to find himself caught up in a web of lies and deceit. I never meant for things to go this far, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. I just wanted to know where I came from. But now I think your mother might still be alive. And I think I know where she is. Together, Olivia and Nathan raced to the abandoned warehouse, arriving just as the police were preparing to leave. As they burst through the door, they were met with a sight that would be seared into their memories forever. There, emerging from a hidden room behind a false wall, was Victoria Sinclair. She looked haggard and weak, but very much alive. The next few hours passed in a blur of tears, explanations, and revelations. Victoria, it turned out, had regained consciousness shortly after James left her at Crystal Lake. Dazed and confused, she had wandered into the woods, eventually finding her way to the abandoned warehouse. Afraid of what James might do if he discovered she was alive, she had hidden there, using her artistic skills to survive by selling sketches anonymously online. James Sinclair, once the pinnacle of success, now faced charges of attempted murder and financial crimes. Sinclair Innovations, the company he had built from nothing, teetered on the brink of collapse. Victoria, after a brief hospital stay, returned home to begin the long process of healing, both physically and emotionally. Her relationship with Olivia, strained for so long by secrets and resentment, slowly began to mend as mother and daughter rediscovered their common ground through art. And Nathan, the catalyst who had set all of these events in motion, found himself grappling with the consequences of his actions. The family he had sought to infiltrate and destroy was now, in a twist of fate, the only real family he had ever known. Monte Sereno would never be quite the same. The appearance of perfection that had coated the elite community had been irrevocably cracked, revealing the all-too human flaws beneath. As autumn settled over the hills of Silicon Valley, the Sinclair estate stood as a silent testament to the events of that tumultuous summer. Victoria and Olivia worked side by side in the studio, their canvases slowly filling with images of rebirth and renewal. And in a small apartment across town, Nathan Brooks sat at his desk, staring at a blank page, ready to begin writing the story of a family torn apart and brought together again by long-buried secrets. The Monte Sereno affair, as it came to be known, served as a stark reminder that even in a world of carefully curated images and meticulously maintained facades, the truth has a way of coming to light. For the Sinclairs, that truth had nearly destroyed them, but in the end, it had also set them free.